Hi everyone, welcome back to channel. Today we are diving into something super exciting, building the Wordle game from scratch using React. Now, if you have never heard of Wordle game before, you are in for a treat. Wordle is a simple yet addictive word guessing game that challenges your vocabulary and deduction skill. The goal? To guess a secret 5-letter word in just 6 attempts. Sounds easy, right? Well, let me tell you, it's more challenging than it seems. In each record, you will guess a 5-letter word and the game will give you feedback on your guesses. Letters in green mean they are in the correct position and are part of the secret word, while letters in yellow mean they are in the word but not in the right position. Your task is to use these clues to narrow down the possibilities and guess the word correctly before you run out of attempts. Now, before we jump into the code, I want to set the stage and give you a heads up about what to expect. We will be implementing the Wordle game in React, which means we will be working with components, state management, and all the coolest stuff React offers. But there is the kicker. We are not just building any old Wordle game. We are going to take it up a notch and incorporate some advanced concepts like sagas, reducers, and middlewares. Now, don't worry if you don't familiar with these terms or if they sound intimidating. I will be walking you through each of them, explaining what they are and how they fit into your Wordle game project. We don't be doing a deep dive into their implementation details, but you will get a solid understanding of their purpose and why we are using them. But fear not, we are not stopping there. Once we have our project set up with all the necessary tools, we will dive straight into the fun part, coding the actual word game algorithm and components. I will explain each step of the process in details, breaking down the logic behind the game and how we are translating it into code. So if you're ready to level up your React skills and dive into the Wordle game development, buckle up because we are about to embark on an exciting coding journey together. Make sure to grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's get to coding. Let me know if you're gonna access the source code of the Wordle game and comment it below this video. Installation. Firstly, we need to create React app based on which platform by typing this command in the console. npm create with at latest. After the installation, we open our project by typing code dots in the root directory of the project. It will open project in VS Code. Then we need to install some packages. Install Redux and React Redux. React Redux is the official Redux UI binding library for React. npm install Redux React Redux. Next, we need to install Redux Toolkit. Redux Toolkit is the official toolset for efficient Redux development by writing npm install Redux JS/toolkit. After that, we need to install Redux Saga. Redux Saga is a library that aims to make application side effects. For example, asynchronous things like data fetching and impure things like accessing the browser cache. Easier to manage, more efficient to execute, easy to test, and better to handling failure. And for that, we need to write npm install Redux-Saga. Finally, we need to install Axios. Axios is promise-based HTTP client for browser and Node.js by typing npm install Axios. Now, you have all the packages you need to use Redux, Redux Toolkit, Redux Saga, and Axis in your React and TypeScript project. There are 4 files which are necessary for our project. The first one would be App.tsx. We have App.tsx, which includes CSS of the app component. If you want the source code of this project, ask me in the comment. The second one would be hooks.ts, which export cons use app selector. This creates a new hook called use app selector that is typed version of use selector hook. And the type use selector hook type is a generic type that takes the type of Redux store state as its type parameter. And by specifying root state as type parameter, you are saying that the use app selector hook will be used to select data from Redux store state of type root state. Then we have index.css as well, and the main .tsx that we provide a store for the application. Then we create reducers.ts in the source folder of our project. This TypeScript code is using Redux Toolkit's combine reducer function to combine multiple reducer functions into a single root reducer function. Here is a breakdown of this code. Firstly, const root reducer equal to combine reducer, etc. This creates a root reducer function when combining the game reducer function with the combine reducers function. The game reducer function is assigned to the game key, which means that it will be responsible for updating the game slice of the Redux state. And then we export type app state equal to, etc. This export a type alias for the state of the Redux store. The return type utility type is used to get the return type of root reducer function, which is the type of the state of the Redux store. In reducer.ts, this TypeScript code is using Redux Toolkit to create a slice function to generate a slice of Redux store. A slice refers to a portion of the Redux state that is managed by a specific reducer function. First, const initial state equal to, etc. This defines the initial state for the slice of Redux store. The state is an object with 2 properties, request pending and guessing. The next step, export const game slice equal to create a slice, etc. This creates a slice of Redux store. The create a slice function automatically generates action creator and action type based on the reducer object you provide. In this case, the reducer object is the makeGuess, which spread the makeGuess object into the reducer object. Const action reducer equal to game slice. This destructures the actions and reducer from the game slice object. The action object contains a generated action creator, and the reducer is the reducer function for the slice of the Redux store. Export const do make guess, successful make guess, etc. This export the action creator for making a guess, successfully making a guess, and failing to make a guess. And finally, we export default reducer. Make guess reducer. This is our main reducer. So this TypeScript code export an object, and these methods are used as a Redux reducer or middleware to handle different stages of making a guess in this game. Here is breakdown of each method. Do make guess. This method calls when a guess is being made. It takes 2 parameters, that current state of the game, state and action. It says a state request pending to true to indicate that a guess is being made, and then returns the updated state. Successful make guess. This method is called when a guess has been successfully made. It makes the current state of game and an action as parameters. If the isValid property of the actions payload is true, it adds the payload to the guessinfo array in the state. It then sets a state request pending to false to indicate that the guess has been made, and returns the updated state. Failed make guess. This method is called when a guess has failed to be made. It takes the current state of the game and an action as a parameters. It set a state that request pending to false to indicate that the guess has failed, and then returns the updated state. The make guess object is then exported as a default export of the module. Now for handling stores, we create a store.ts in source directory of our project. This TypeScript code is setting up a Redux store with Redux Toolkit and Redux Saga middleware. Here is breakdown of this code. Firstly, in the line const Saga middleware equal to create Saga middleware. This creates the Redux Saga middleware, and the Saga monitor option is an object that can be used to monitor the execution of sagas. Const store equal to configure store, etc. This creates a Redux store. The configure store function takes an option object that can include reducer, middleware, and etc. Then Saga middleware.run my saga. This runs the root saga. The run method of the Saga middleware starts the execution of the provided saga. Export type root state equal to return type of a store that get a state. This export a type alias for the state of the Redux store. The return type utility type is used to get the return type of the store get a state method. Then export type App.tsx equal to type of a store that dispatch. This export a type alias for the dispatch method of the Redux store. The type of operator is used to get type of the store dispatch method. And finally, we export default store. That's export Redux store as a default export of this module. Make guess saga.ts. This is the main saga which is handle the side effect. This TypeScript code is defining two generator function on make guess and make guess saga, which are part of Redux Saga middleware. Redux Saga is a library used to handle side effects, asynchronous action like data fetching in Redux application. Here is breakdown of each function. On make guess, this function is a worker saga that handles the game action type action. It makes a post request to a URL using axios.post, with the guess from the actions payload as a request body. If the request is successful, it dispatches a successful make guess action with the response data and call success callback with the response data. If the request fails, it logs the error and dispatches a failed make guess action. 2. Make guess saga. This function is a watcher saga that listens for do make guess action. When it detects do make guess action, it calls the unmake guess worker saga with the action as the argument. So here's a step-by-step explanation of the function. It first defines a URL to which it will make a post request. It then enters a try-catch block to handle potential error in the asynchronous request. Inside the try block, it makes the post request using axios.post. It uses the yield keyword, pause the saga until the request is complete. The call effect is used to call the function, in this case axios.post, with the provided arguments. If the request is successful, it dispatches a successful make saga action with the response data. The put effect is used to dispatch an action to the Redux store. It then calls a success callback with the response data. If the request fails through an error, it logs the error and dispatches a failed make guess action. The task for each do make guess action allowing multiple do make guesses action to be handled concurrently. Sagas.ts. This is the file that every sagas in the project should be added here, not the full description of the saga, but the alias of the saga. This TypeScript code is defining a generator function. Generator after the function name is a TypeScript type annotation indicating that the function returns a generator. And try-catch block, which is used to catch and handle any errors that occur in try block. Yield all fork make guess saga. this line is using the yield keyword to pause the generator function until the alt effect is complete. The alt effect is used to run multiple effects in parallel, and it takes an array of effects as its argument. In this case, there is only one effect, fork make guess saga. The fork effect is used to start new saga task in the background, which is make guess saga is another generator function defined elsewhere in our code. We have folder name schema, which include 4 files. They introduced types which are used in our application. The first file is game.ts. This TypeScript code is defining several interfaces that describe the shape of objects in a game application. The first one is game store type. This interface represents a state of the game in the Redux store. It has 2 properties, request pending, a boolean indicating whether a request like a guess is currently pending, and guessinfo, an array of guessinfo type object, each representing a guess made by the user. Guessinfo type, this interface represents a guess made by a user. It had 3 properties, guess, which is a string representing the user's guess, is valid, an optional boolean indicating whether the guess is valid, and a score is an optional array of number representing the score for the guess. Game action type, this interface represents an action that can be dispatched to the Redux store. It has 2 properties. Type, a string represents the type of the action, and payload, an object containing the data associated with the action. It has 4 properties, is valid, an optional boolean indicating whether the guess is valid, a score, an optional array of numbers representing the score for the guess, and guess is a string representing the user guess, and successful callback, a function to be called if the guess is successful. It takes 2 parameters, a boolean indicating whether the guess is valid, and an array of numbers representing the score. Guess response. This interface represents the response from a server after making a guess. It has 1 property, data, an object containing the data from the response. It has 2 properties, is valid word, a boolean indicating whether the guess word is valid, and a score, an array of numbers representing the score for the guess. These interfaces are used to provide type safety and auto-completion when working with these objects in the code. They ensure that the object have the correct shape and that they contain the correct types of value. The next file is cell.ts. This TypeScript code is defining an interface named cell prop type. This interface is likely used to type check the prop of cell component in a React application. Here is a breakdown of the interface. Value, this is optional property of type string, and the question mark after the property name indicates that the property may not always be provided when creating an object of this type. This could represent the value displayed in a cell. A status is an optional property of type number. This could represent the status of a cell where different number might correspond to different statuses. The cell prop type interface ensures that any object that's supposed to be of its type will have the correct shape and that the property of the object will have the correct types. If an object of type cell prop type is used somewhere else in the code, TypeScript will enforce that it has these properties with this type. The third file is guess.ts. This TypeScript code is defining 3 interfaces that are likely used to type check props of different components in this React application. And the first one is guess prop type, and this interface is used for component that probably display all the guesses made by the user. It has 2 properties. Guesses, an array of strings where each string represents guess made by user. Current guess, an array of strings that likely represent the current guess being made by the user. Each string in array could represent a character or word in the guess. And the current guess prop type, this interface is used for components that display the current guess being made by the user. It has 1 property, guess, which is an array of strings that represent current guess. Each string in the array could represent a character or a word in the guess. And the completed guess prop type is used for component that display a guess that has been completed by the user. It has one property, guess, a string that represents a completed guess. And the last one is modal.ts. This TypeScript code is defining an interface named GameStatsModal and is used to type check the props of GameStatsModal components in React application. And the first one is showStats, a boolean indicating whether the game statics should be displayed if through the modal showing the game statistic is probably visible. Game played, a number representing the total number of games played. Win percentage, a number representing the win percentage of the game. This is typically calculated as a number of game won divided by the total number of game played multiplied by 100. Current streak, a number representing the current winning streak. For example, the number of consecutive games won. Max streak, a number representing the maximum winning streak. For example, the highest number of games won consecutively. And close, a function that's called when the modal is closed. The function takes no argument and returns no value. And OK, a function that is called when the OK button is in the modal is clicked. The function also takes no argument and returns no value. Let's go to the main component. First, we create two folders which are grid and result. And first folder, which is grid, includes all the required components for the base Wordle component. And the second one is result, which is related to modal and results page. The first component is cell.tsx. Its responsible is render each cells. Export cost, cell, class name, etc. This line uses the class name library to combine class name into a single string. A styles.cell is a CSS module class name, and getStatus class name, status as number, is a function call that returns a class name based on the status prop. The status prop is cast to number using as number. Return div classes value, etc. This line returns the JSX for the component. It's a div element with the class name set, the class as a string, and the value prop as its child. And here is this cell module.css, which declare classes for each scenario: wrong letter, right letter, and disposition letter. Let's explain getStatus class name component or function. It's a functional component and is used to map a status number to a CSS class name. It takes a number as an argument and returns a string. Const a status class map, a key number, a string, etc. This line declares a constant, a status class map, which is an object that maps number to strings. This types of object is declared as key string, which means it's an object with numeric keys and string values. 0 as a style wrong letter, 1 as a styles present letter, and 2 as styles that correct letter. These lines define the mapping from numbers to CSS value names. The numbers 0, 1, and 2 are mapped style wrong letter, style present letter, and styles correct letter, respectively. The styles object is imported from CSS module. And at the end, return a status class map, status, or styles.cell. And these lines return a CSS class name corresponding to the status number. If a status is not a key in a status class map, it defaults to a style.cell. Let's talk about rows and grids component. The first component is completed row. Const guessInfo equals to use app selector state, etc. This line uses the use app selector book to access the Redux store's state. It extracts the game state and destructure from it. Use app selector is a custom hook that is typically used in Redux toolkit to replace the use selector hook from React Redux. Const score equal to guessinfo.find item, etc. This line finds the object in guessinfo where the guess property matches the guess prop and extract the score property from it. Return div class name, etc. This line returns the JSX from the component. It's a div element with the class name set to styles.row. Guess split.map letter, etc. This line split the guess string into an array of characters, map over the array, and returns a cell component for each character. The cell component takes a key prop, the index of character, a value prop, the character itself, and a status prop, the score at the index of the character. The completed guess prop type is a custom type defined in a schema that specifies the type of guess props. That cell component is also a custom component defined elsewhere in our code. The second component is current row.tsx. Const empty cells equal to array from array 5 minus guess.length. This slice creates an array of empty cells. The number of empty cells is 5 minus guess.length, which means it's number of cells that are not filled with a guess. Array.from array 5 minus guess.length creates an array of undefined value of the specified length. Div class name equal to styles.row. This is JSX that gets returned by the component. It's a div element with the class name of styles.row. Guess.map letter I, etc. This slice maps over the guess array and returns a cell component for each letter. The cell component takes a key prop, the index of a letter, and value prop, the letter itself. Empty cells.map, etc. This line maps over the empty cells array and returns a cell component for each empty cell. The cell component takes only a key prop, the index of the cell. Since these cells are empty, no value prop is passed. The third component is empty row.tsx. Div class name equal to styles.row. This is a div element with the class name of styles.row. The styles object is imported from a CSS module, and row is a CSS class that styles the row of cells. Empty cells.map, etc. This line maps over the empty cells array and returns a cell component for each empty cell. The cell component takes only a key prop, the index of the cell. Since these cells are empty, no value is passed. The empty cells array is not defined in the provided code, but it is an array of undefined of a certain length presenting the empty cell in a row. The next file I am going to explain is empty row module, which define a row class and create by defining 5 columns. The next component is grid.tsx, and const empties equal to guess.length less than 5, array.from, etc. This line creates an array of empty row. The number of empty row is 5 minus guess.length, which means it's the number of rows are not filled with guess. If the length of guesses is less than 5, it creates an array of undefined. Otherwise, it creates an empty array. Div class name equal to style.boardView, etc. This is the JSX that gets returned by the component. It's a div element with class name of styles.boardRow. Guesses.map guess and I, etc. This line maps over the guesses array and returns a completed row component for previous guess. The completed row component take a key prop, the index of the guess, and the guess prop, the guess itself. Guess length less than 6 and current row guess equal to current guess. This line conditionally return a current row component if the length of guess is less than 6. The current row component takes a guess prop, the current guess. Empties.map, this line maps over the empty array and returns an empty row component for each empty row. The empty row component takes only a key prop, which is the index of the sum. The next file would be grid.module.css, which is define the CSS class for grid and creates 6 row for representing the base table for the Wordle. Okay, let's go to App.tsx. App.tsx is using 2 custom hooks, use key down and use result, to manage state and logic, and it is rendering a game board and a modal with game statistic. Cast guesses and current guesses equal to use key down. This line calls the use key down hook, which returns an object with the current guesses and the guesses. Const, etc. equal to use result. This line is called the use result hook, which returns an object with various game statistics and foundations. The return statement renders the main layout of the component. It includes a header with the title Wordle, a game board, and the modal with the game statistic. The game board is conditionally rendered based on the show stats. If show stat is false, it renders the memorized grid component with the guesses and the current guess. If show stats is true, it returns the text you win. The modal component is rendered with various props and children. The open prop is set to show stats, which means the modal is open when game statistic should be shown. The unOK and uncancelled props are set to functions returned by the use result hook. The children of the modal component displays the game statistics and the table component with guess distribution data. Cast memorized grid equal to memo grid. This lines create a memorized version of the grid component. The memo function is a React function that optimizes functional component by memorizing them. For example, it remembers the last render result of the component and reuse it if the props haven't changed. Let's jump into 2 custom hooks, use key down and use result. Okay, use key down. This is a custom React hook named use key down written in TypeScript. It is used to handle keyboard event and manage the state of the current guess and all guesses made. Const current guess, set current guess equal to etc. This line initializes a state variable with an empty array. Current guess is an array of strings representing the current guess. Const guess and set guesses. This line initializes a state variable with an empty array. Guesses is an array of a string representing all guesses made. Const handle key down. This function is the event handler for key down event. It checks the key press and performs different action based on the key. If the enter key is pressed, it checks the length of the current guess is 5. If it is, it dispatches do make a guess action with the current guess and the callback function. The callback function checks if the guess is valid and update the guesses and current guesses state accordingly. If the guess is not valid or the length of the current guess is not 5, shows an error message. If the backspace key is pressed, it removes the last letter from the current guess. And if any other key is pressed and the length of the current guess is less than 5, it adds the key to the current guess. Use effect equaled, etc. This use effect hooks adds the handle key down function as an event listener for the key down event when the component mount and removes it when the component unmount or current guess state changes. Return guess and current guess. This lines return an object with guess and current guess state. The other custom hooks is use result. This is a custom React hook named use result. It is used to manage the state of the game result and provide some utility function, and data to displaying the result. Const game played, set game played, use similar line. This line initializes a state variable with initial value 0. These variables are used to track the number of games played, the number of wins, the current stake of wins, the maximum stake of wins, and whether to show the stats. Const guest info. This line uses the use app selector hook to select the guest info from the Redux state. Const unclose and const OK. These functions are used to close the stats display. Use effect, etc. The use effect hooks run whenever guest info changes. It checks if the game is won, all the scores are 2, or if there have been 6 guesses. If either condition is true, it increments the games played, wins, and current stakes, updates the max stake if necessary, and shows a stat. Const win percentage. This line calculates the win percentage. Const guest distribution data. Guest info.map, guest data and index. This line maps through the guest info to an array of objects that can be used to display table of guest distribution data. Const guest distribution column. The array defines a column for the guest distribution table. Return, etc. This line returns an object with the state variable, utility function, and data for displaying the result. The return object can be destructured to get the state variables, utility function, and data. And the unclose and unok function are be passed props to a modal or dialog component to close it. The guest distribution data and the guest distribution column can be passed as props to table component to display the guest distribution. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up.